These are the sounds of 7Mangos. Yeah. All right, everybody, welcome to a segment that we are calling the Sounds of 7Mangos. My name is Erik Young, and I am here joined by my guest today, Aaron Prohaska. Say hello, Aaron.
Hello, everyone.
So, Aaron, you're kind enough to join us to talk a little bit about yourself, some of your projects. I consider you one of my favorite local creators, so we definitely want to hear about some of the projects that you've worked on last year and what's coming up for you in the future. So let's just get started with that. Why don't you tell the listeners about yourself, what you do, and what you enjoy doing?
Sure. So I've been in Florida most of my life. I've done many different kinds of projects ranging mainly in the software development area. That was my career of choice, which introduced me to a lot of computer-based kind of technologies. I've leaned into that for most of my artistic expression as well. My thing that I'm working on from this year is the series Mountain Time Country Dog. The Adventures of Mountain Time Country Dog.
Of course.
And then it's the first book, and it's Mountain Time Learns to Surf. So it's volume 1 of this little segment.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So I definitely want to get into Mountain Time Country Dog because he's certainly one of the coolest things I think you've worked on in the last year. But I want to share briefly one of the first things that I ever knew about you, and that's that you self-produced your own hip-hop album. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. I was introduced to rap music, in high school, and it was when Snoop Dogg was really popular. My first album was Doggy Style, and it just really brought to light a whole different world that I didn't know about.
Should be everyone's first album.
It's a great album.
It's fantastic. It's a classic hip-hop album for sure. So that kind of inspired you into or showed you the light in terms of the medium of hip hop. What inspired you to make your own hip hop album?
Well, I remember thinking as a middle class suburb white guy that I didn't know about this lifestyle that these artists faced. Like in real life, they had hardships. And though my hardships may not be as taxing or life-threatening or any number of challenges that they had, I still thought it was a medium that I could use to promote the things that I found challenging in my life.
So what was the name of the album? Because that kind of says it all, doesn't it?
It's Middle Class Monotony.
Nice.
Yeah, just, when you work the grind every day, even in I don't dislike my career. I enjoy coding.
Yeah.
But when you do it for a company that dictates how you code and when you code and those kinds of things, it becomes just a routine.
Well, and that's kind of what I've always understood true hip-hop to be, is giving a voice to the disenfranchised, right? And not to say that middle-class white men that work for programming companies are truly disenfranchised in any way, but let's say that there is a voice, there is a struggle, albeit a very different struggle from maybe the creators of the genre of hip-hop. There is a struggle, and what's cool about hip-hop is that medium for a voice can be applied to so many different things, right? Everything from gangsters on the streets of, East LA to the middle class, monotonous white man, right?
Right. I don't think a lot of people acknowledge some of the struggles or the differences. I wanted to not just tackle, me as a developer. There's plenty of jokester rap music that talk about, that particular career. I wanted to talk about the middle class in general, some of the expectations that we have on ourselves, from the kind of car we drive to the kind of house we own to the sexual relationship between husband and wife or whatever partnership you're in. I wanted to say how that monotony plays on that, how we sometimes limit ourselves based on that daily grind.
Now, what I think is so cool about this project, because I've dabbled in music production myself. I've basically been writing songs since I was about 15 or 16 years old. But I've never known, even going through music production school, I've never personally known someone who has gone through the entire process of producing an album, so much to the point where the entity was like for sale, like streamable in its entirety on digital platforms. Like, did you get it registered like with BMI or ASCAP? Like, did you go like all the way like that, or what was the entirety of what you did in order to make this a tangible, sellable album?
I created a company called AA Records, and I bought all my equipment. It was something like $10,000 worth of studio equipment.
You did?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then there's a lot of self-publishing tools now.
Yeah.
So you basically pay a fee, and then you can pick what sources you want to distribute on. They give you the ISBN code, and it's all fully registered, and I had to claim income.
That's what I'm talking about, man. So that kind of transitions into the next thing that I admire about our guest today. Again, this is Aaron Prohaska, everyone. Is that Aaron, don't quit. That could be kind of like a tagline, I feel like, for your life. Aaron, don't quit. So I've been around a lot of songwriters and producers, never known anyone to so legitimately fully produce an album because Aaron, don't quit, which I think kind of segues into the idea of your children's book, Mountain Time Country Dog, right? So do you want to talk a little bit about what the themes are about that book and when you made it and released it?
Sure. So the inspiration of the book was pretty organic in the fact that the storylines came from just being a father. You'd drive down the road, the kids would be like, "Daddy, Daddy, tell me a story." And I'd come up with stuff on the fly. And as they've gotten older, they started to ask, well, could we see it? Could we something more physical?
While driving.
Something tangible. Well, not while driving, of course.
Like, let's get some puppet action going on here.
Well, that's
we're bored back
the
here.
Wife, she had to act, she could act it out while I told the story.
Okay. And so, no story or puppeteering while driving.
Yeah,
We're not advocating that here. Go on.
Safety first.
Correct.
So, decided that though I'm not an artist or a writer in the traditional sense, I said, okay, let's start doing this. And I picked, of course, like I started at the beginning, everything evolves around the computer for me. So the first thing I said is, what do I need to draw? Because I'm not an artist. So, I took, the story's based on our little dog, Bosley, who is a Boston Terrier. So I took pictures of Bosley in different positions, and then I'd pull that into Photoshop, kind of trace it out, and then I created like a coloring book.
Awesome.
And I'd color in the lines. And I think
all using Photoshop?
Okay, everything was Photoshop.
Gotcha.
Yep. And so every picture in the book was created in that process. So humans, get any of the instruments or the horses and all those different things. It's all a real picture traced out in Photoshop and then colored in. So as me finding a way to use what I knew, which is technology, to turn someone that's not an artist into an artist.
Because Aaron, don't quit.
Because Aaron, don't quit. That's right.
Okay.
I'm using that.
Feel free.
Okay.
That's your parting gift for being on the show today. So I feel like there's so much to talk to you about, and we're going to be able to stay on Mountain Time for a little bit longer, but I do want people to know, so that you can plug it right now, how can people go about purchasing your book and or just reading it? How is it available to the public right now?
The easiest would be Amazon.
Okay.
I would use the digital format if you can, but it is offered in paperback. And there's a few others, like if you just do a Google search, you can find it on Barnes & Noble and such, but it's a little cheaper through Amazon, so I would say to go through there.
Gotcha. So a similarity that you and I have is that we both actually released children's books this year, in the year 2017. 7Mangos recently just dropped Santa's Elves Go to Florida. So that was our first little endeavor in writing for children. So when you were writing Mountain Time Country Dog, what age group were you going for? Because that was something that I kind of, I wouldn't say struggled with, but like I realized that that was like a decision that needed to be made.
Yep.
And that the writing would be affected. And then here's the best part is that I was like, oh, I think this book is going to be for ages like 1 to 3. Like it's just going to be something for like real little kids to kind of listen to and enjoy. Turns out I was totally wrong. Kids 1 to 3 are too impatient for it, and it's really been resonating with probably kids closer to like 5 to 7. So when you were making those decisions, what kind of age group were you thinking that Mountain Time was going to be for?
I was targeting third graders, right? So my son's 8 years old, so that right around that age group. But I wanted the imagery to be able to go kind of any age group. So I tried to put in imagery that you can always go back and find something new. I've shown it to very little kids, 3 years old, and they point and laugh at silly, pictures.
Yeah.
And make them also kind of insane enough that an adult will look at it and get a giggle out of it as well.
Yeah.
So the verbiage is definitely targeted towards third grader, and really pushing them. I want them to have to ask for the definition of words.
Nice.
But that the third grade is the main target.
Okay. Gotcha. So, again, Mountain Time Country Dog, you download it on Amazon through their bookstore, and then you can get paper copies of it, too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and on Amazon you can, there's a switch in there that you can do.
I wouldn't expect anything less from you. So,
And there's also the Facebook page, which I haven't been doing a great job of keeping up with, but
we're all really disappointed in you.
it is supposed to be kind of more like the day-to-day life of Mountain Time. So that like eventually the things that play out in the stories, those will be, there'll be a single blurb post so that you can kind of see where it fell into his lifetime.
Nice. Okay, so then you're telling the audience that they can follow Mountain Time Country Dog on Facebook.
On Facebook, yeah. He's got his own fan page.
As he should. Cool, man. So, we'll move on quickly to the future. We're right at about the turn of the year right here, so we're transitioning into 2018. So, with your endeavors of the past, you've made a hip hop album, you've made a children's book. What are your? Let's talk about what your vision for 2018 is. What you personally and your projects, and what's your grand vision for just down the road, and what would you say briefly that looks like?
Well, I'm looking at a pretty big shift in my career direction, which will then play a role in all my external creativity. So I want to get into consulting again. I've been doing full-time work for a few years.
Okay.
And that was nice and safe, but now it's time to be a little more aggressive. But in that, I'm not even sure about the name, but this morning kind of came up with Creative Corners as the idea of the company as a whole. It would allow me to consult and do my technical creativity because I'm selling myself as a creative solutions consultant.
Gotcha.
And then I can then hide in my, the books and the screenplays and the music or whatever it is I come up with. Obviously, Mountain Time Volume 2 is, on the horizon. We got other pets in the family that are craving some spotlight. They're feeling a little left out, if you know what I'm saying.
I can imagine.
Yeah,
I didn't even know you had any other pets until this moment right now.
Bosley's getting all the spotlight.
It's messed up, Aaron.
And the other animals said they need in. So,
all right, cool.
So we're going to start introducing some new characters.
Maybe they just should have been more interesting in the first place. So partially they have some
they have some
accountability.
ownership. Yeah.
Okay.
I do a thing for school every year called Teach In, and I wrote a little website that is like a Mad Lib version of a Mountain Time. It's a short Mountain Time Country Dog story.
Okay.
And the kids can Mad Lib it, and they really enjoyed it. And I'm thinking about using that as a promotional tool. So instead of just doing a book signing, the kids will come in, they'll learn a little bit about coding, and I'll show them the website, and it'll be real interactive. They'll come in and give words, and then they'll hear their story playback with their words in it.
Gotcha.
So making the stories dynamic. So that'll be part of.
So I really like the sound of Creative Corners because it seems like there's going to be this synthesis of your very, very technical background of being a computer programmer and software engineer and whatnot, and all of these super artistic endeavors, right? Like music and books and illustrations and things of that nature. So I really like how you think that those two things can and really should be combined. And you're not really shying away or trying to make two different companies. So for instance, like you were telling me earlier, when you're doing a programming consultation, you want your clients to see that under the same umbrella, you're also pursuing all of these other creative fields. Is that right?
Right. I think it shows how I think. If they don't see the whole package and I get in there and then they think I'm going to be just the structured everyday programmer that has come to be successful, they're going to be surprised, and then they may not be happy with the work. Whereas if they see this, they know where my priorities are. They know that I'm going to think outside the box.
Yeah. Do you think that you are an exception to the rule in the world of programming? Like, do you think that there is a stereotypical type of person that has a career in programming and that they generally do not find any sort of pleasure in writing a children's book or doing something that is considered quote unquote artistic?
I think as we get, as we're moving forward and you look at the millennial generation, I think there is more hand in hand with, different facets of yourself and bringing that into the workplace and allowing creativity to drive this kind of solution building. For my age group, I don't know anyone else that does like me. I know people that perform in bands and stuff, and they just keep it kind of as a hobby. So you do see creativity. I'm not saying people, but like to want to make it part of their professional portfolio.
Yeah, or your personal brand. Because when you start this, Creative Corners, that's what you're doing, is you're building a brand, and your brand is really centered on the idea that I'm gonna write some sick code for you, but like also I'm this multifaceted creative as well, and that's what you're gonna hire me because that's what makes me stand out, right?
Exactly.
So I guess that kind of brings me to my final question, which is, do you think that creative people are just, do you think that creativity in general is something that you either are or you are not? Or is it something that is learnable and achievable if you feel like you are currently not a creative person?
I think there's so many different levels to it. It's almost like everything. There's a gray scale, and you may fall into a very creative mindset, or you may fall into a very, prescribed, track where you just very defined and you don't allow yourself out of a box. And I think those people exist. I think most people are somewhere in the middle, and it depends on how brave and they are to allow it out, to allow people to see it. I'm sure there's people that are way creative that kind of hide it away because, they don't want to get rejected or, out of fear. So I don't think there is a concise answer to that. I think it depends on your personality and how you want to display yourself.
Yeah. I'll say for me personally, I've grown to despise when people either definitively say that they are or are not a creative person. And I think that we're kind of in the same school of thought here, is because I think that it is, number one, learnable. And if you are not exercising your creative muscles daily, then you can certainly learn to, so that it is achievable and learnable, right? But I get so upset when people treat it almost like it's a genetic thing, where it's like, oh, I was born with brown eyes, and that's just who I am.
I think there are people that have more natural talent, right? And I think they become the greats.
Yeah.
And that's okay. It's okay that some people excel, but that doesn't mean that just because I'm not the best of the best that I can't enjoy it, one, which is the primary goal. Two, I can't teach people through it. And three, I just, showing I have kids, so I want to show them I have all of these abilities inside me. Maybe I'm not, the Da Vinci of anything.
Yeah.
But if I want to learn something, I'm not afraid to tackle it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So, dude, I think you're kind of living proof of that. Is that like, so you come from this computer programming background where people would look at that maybe in comparison to an occupation like a musician or something like that. And they would say, well, clearly the musician is the more creative out of the two. But it's like, I think that that's just a very narrow-sighted view on creativity. And I think that that's the conversation that needs to be had to kind of change the perceptions on what creativity is. Number one, when you were just talking a moment ago about the current state of programming and, the incoming generation and whatnot, and how solutions within your industry of programming require creativity. So why is it typecast as a career that does not require creativity or that does not employ creative people? I think that that's totally wrong, but also I think that you're living proof that, you can learn things that you might not be naturally gifted with. You know what I mean? And the people that are classified as creative or the ones that may say, oh, I am a very creative person, I think that the misclassification there is maybe those are the people that are more naturally inspired, but even seeking inspiration in order to execute creative endeavors is a process that can be learned, right?
And I think, and just to kind of flip what you just said around a little bit, is that we almost think of creative people as not technical people.
Right.
But really, when you look at art, it's all science and math and physics. It's how light refracts and reflects, and perspective is, all these things have very technical foundations.
Right.
And people go to school to learn that. So I think it's all living proof that it's all one kind of thinking.
Right.
That you can't exist as just a right brain or just a left brain.
Yeah.
It's all working together.
Yeah, that sort of thinking's got to go, in my personal opinion. But that's what we talk about here on the Sounds of 7Mangos. So I told you that a goal of this session would be to keep it succinct. So we're wrapping it up right now. I want to say thank you again, Mr. Aaron Prohaska, for being our first guest. And do you want to talk to people quickly about how they can find you online if they want to continue the conversation with you?
Facebook is a really great one. It's just under Aaron Prohaska, Prohaska.
That's right.
It's very easy, even though it sounds hard.
Everybody, that's been the Sounds of 7Mangos, first episode in the books. We will talk to you guys next time. Peace.